Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. My name is JT Olson, and for those of you who are newer to the show, this is the aforementioned co host who, has not joined us since we switched platforms. But this is the one and only Garrett Ballard. Garrett,
Yeah,
welcome back.
thank you, man. Thank you. Life's been busy recently, but happy to be back. Came back in good timing from the look of things right now. But yeah, back happy to be back talking Bucks football.
Yeah, for having been eliminated from the playoffs just 2 weeks ago, this feels like a really big week in Bucks off season slash the future of next season. So many things are happening this week that are going to shape next year. But before we look at next year, you know, talk to the people. We haven't really touched base at all in the last couple of weeks about the Bucks or the state of the Bucks and all that kind of thing. Where are you at with this team? How the season ended? Did they meet your expectations? How are you feeling going into the off season? Where are you at?
Yeah, I think just like anyone else, they far exceeded at my expectations. Like I knew the team was talented, but my hang up was the quarterback, and Baker Mayfield uh, proved me wrong 100%. I thought there was a shot mid-year that Kyle Trask, they'd throw him in there to see what we got, but Baker Mayfield took the opportunity and made the most of it. Um, hopefully I'm like at the point where I'm like, yeah, bring him back. Obviously for the right price. I don't want to pay him like 45 mil. Cause I don't think he's worth that, but like $30 million, give it to Baker Mayfield. I mean, he was killer. He was one of the more important players in getting us to the playoffs. Was able to do everything he needed and then some on occasion. And, the pairing of him, Mike Evans, and Dave Canales was um, a welcomed sight for a otherwise bleak outlook before the season. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, career year for Baker Mayfield. Great timing for him after being passed around from team to team last year. But for him to bounce back like this, be in the running for comeback player of the year, go to the Pro Bowl,
Pro Bowl.
winning the skills
Yeah.
challenge there, you know, great season for Baker Mayfield with the Bucks. And yeah, definitely. I'm not, ready for a long-term commitment. I'm more like that 2 or 3 year kind of
I'm with you.
mark. Similar money, 30 million, I think is fair for, comparable
I'd
deals.
say like anywhere between 3 years, between 75 and 90, I'm okay with.
And honestly, if they gave him 3 years, 100, and it was like,
Yeah,
no dead
that's
money towards the end, I could live with
yeah,
that.
yeah, me too.
But Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, those are going to be comparable deals when we're talking about a contract extension for Baker. And I'm for it. You got a quarterback. He's not my dream quarterback by any means, but the offense ran fairly well most of the time. Sometimes it struggled because of him. Sometimes it struggled, and he tried to elevate it. He was good, even he wasn't the reason for the struggle. So coming back in year two, a little bit more continuity, more familiarity with the system, with the rest of the players. I think it's only going to mean better things for Baker next year, even.
Yeah, you speak to the continuity, and the one thing that has never been consistent for Baker Mayfield is that play caller spot, and that yet again is going to change. I was pretty, you know, I liked what Dave Canales did. I'm honestly pretty surprised that he got a head coaching gig. I know he's a great leader and he's a great guy. People respect him. Up in the press box, he was always like, "Hey, good morning. Great day to play football." He's a great dude, easy, approachable, and the players are going to play for him. They're going to love playing for him. So from a leader standpoint, from that aspect of head coaching, I'm bought in. I completely understand, but um, from a play calling perspective, I was shocked that they took a chance on a first year play caller. Um, Not even a first year play caller, first year offensive coordinator. It's not even like he was an offensive coordinator before that. He was just a QB coach. He's going to do wonderful things with Bryce Young. I can already tell you that. That's going to be a marriage that is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Um, but I was surprised, as it was coming down to the wire. I was like, I'm hearing some things. I was like, okay, looks like Dave Canales is going to go to Carolina. But uh, I was surprised. Uh, Sucks for Baker. I mean, all signs are pointing to him coming back to Tampa, even though a deal is not completed. But that was, you know, I'm sure when he got hired in Carolina, he and his representation were kind of like, all right, let's wait a little bit. Let's take a step back, check things out, see who they're going to hire. And today, probably about 12 hours ago, honestly, it was reported that they are finalizing a deal with Liam Coen of the Kentucky Wildcats to be their next offensive coordinator.
Yeah, when I think big time football program, Kentucky Wildcats, that's where my brain immediately jumps. Blue blood
Yeah,
powerhouse program.
yeah, of course.
But no, I joke, I'm sarcastic, but I do like this hire. I feel really optimistic about this hire. And the big thing that I like most about it goes back to that continuity word I touched on earlier. He is very much in the same background in terms of the system he runs as Dave Canales was.
Yep.
Dave Canales, was a protege of Shane Waldron. He brought Shane Waldron's system from Seattle to Tampa. Shane Waldron got that system from Sean McVay. That was the Rams offense. Waldron brought it with him to Seattle. So naturally, a McVay guy who developed that system is kind of the mastermind behind the system. That made a lot of sense to me. And, whether it was this other guy, Peets, or Coen, both were really logical choices because this system proved to be really effective last year. As much as I like Canales, I think his system really helped benefit Baker more than his play calling, his leadership, his vibes. I think the system that he brought to Tampa was huge for Baker Mayfield's revival. So to keep that in place with a guy who knows the terminology or will keep it all very similar, probably, I think that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, entering this offensive coordinator search, JT and I are in a group chat together on Twitter with a number of other people, and immediately I was like, all right, I want to see the Bucs interview 2 names. I said Zach Robinson, who ended up going to the Falcons with Raheem Morris, great hire, and Liam Coen. I didn't really think about Pete's, but later on when I saw that they were interviewing Pete's, I was like, my gut tells me this might be a guy they are really looking at. And then, a day later, they were like, yep, we've interviewed Liam Coen. And I was like, that's another one. All of those Sean McVay guys stand out. It's a natural what's the segue from Canales to those guys because of the system, like you said, and the familiarity that Baker Mayfield's going to have with that. And the Bucs want to keep Baker. I would assume Baker wants to stay in Tampa, so making sure that he's comfortable with whatever system is brought in was, I'm sure, the number one thing that Jason Light and Todd Bowles were looking for in a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and I was right there with you. Zach Robinson was the top guy on my list. He was the only guy I feel like they missed out on. There were other guys who they interviewed. Kellen Moore was one. Ken Dorsey was one. Those guys were, they were respectable offensive coordinators. They were big names, but they didn't really move the needle for me.
I thought they were going to like Gerard Johnson.
I thought that too. He was
young
one who I was interested in.
QB coach in a system that is high flying. I thought they were going to be like, yeah, we like this guy, but
they didn't miss out on him because of the length of time it took to interview these guys. And the Falcons, they started their coaching search like 2 months ago, so naturally they get the jump on the Bucs there. So it was a bummer, but I think Coen, there's every reason to believe he can be equally successful. He's got the same kind of track record. I think both are going to do really well.
And I mean, this is not a surefire slam dunk, right? I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot of similarities with the Canales hire last year, aside from the system they run. Obviously, Coen has a little bit of play calling experience at Kentucky, but he's never. The NFL is not the SEC, right? No matter what you say about the SEC, the NFL is miles better. But what does give you reason to be excited is that not only has he kind of helped Kentucky become like decently competitive in the SEC every now and then, Will Levis had his best year with Liam Coen calling plays. Devin Leary just had his best year under Liam Coen calling plays. And he's got that NFL experience that you can say, okay, this is not a just random college hire who impressed, like a Matt Rule, Um, there are things to look at where you can say, yeah, nice, I like that, and it'll work well.
Yeah, I wanted to point out this comment from San Otto Gato. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Um, Pointing out the history that Coen and Baker have together. Coen was right there in the room as the offensive coordinator when Baker went to Los Angeles for that 4-game stint.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a personal history together. And to his point and his other comment, I think Pewter Report reported this earlier. Coen was actually calling the plays in LA at that point in the year when Baker was there.
I missed that.
Yeah, because obviously Sean McVay, he calls the plays. He runs the show in LA. But at that point in the year, the season was dead. He kind of loosened the reins a little bit. And, I think he had some other priorities going on. He's mulling retirement at that point. So Coen actually did get a little bit of taste of play calling in the NFL with Baker Mayfield. So, there's a little bit of the NFL experience and, 4-game sample size. It's not huge. There's still going to be growing pains, to your point. He's got a lot more college experience than NFL experience. But, to get his feet wet a little bit with this quarterback, I think that's, like you said, a great transition for this offense.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting. We have a lot of, I want to say, he's going to come in and, he's going from Cooper Kupp to Mike Evans and see how, but I unfortunately have to withhold myself from saying Mike Evans just yet, even though I think it'll be all right, but just got to wait on that. But with the offensive tools that we have, seeing the offensive linemen get out in space, move them around a little bit and utilizing these skill pieces. I'm a big fan of how Los Angeles uses their running backs. So I think Rachaad White's going to see a nice year next year. That some of them, but you look at Kyron Williams this last year and you see a lot of similarities, not that breakaway speed, but just a tough, patient runner. I think Rachaad White's going to have a solid year production wise again. And you just turn your eyes to the passing game, of course. If Mike Evans comes back and we expect him to, it's going to be a good show to watch.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously LA runs a very different system than what the Bucs have run in the past. And they are transitioning to that mold, but it's a very different brand of wide receiver. You compare Mike Evans to Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua, they are night and day different styles. So I do wonder if the Bucs will target a guy who's a little bit more of a separator, a little bit quicker, kind of prioritize that slot role, maybe put Chris Godwin there a little bit more next year. And I know there's at least 1 or 2 Senior Bowl guys who we're going to talk about a little later who I think would be a great diamond in the rough kind of guy. Round 3, round 4 would really thrive in that kind of role.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So before we transition to Senior Bowl, any closing thoughts on Coen? If you wanted to grade it, where would you rank this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give it a B plus. I don't want to give it an A because there were options that I would have preferred, and whether or not they could have hired them, I'm not really taking that into account. I'm just going purely off of who was available and who they ended up hiring. Like you said, Zach Robinson was 1A for sure. My gosh, my thoughts are escaping me right now. Despite, like I said, I think Coen, good track record, but just a bit unproven. Like you said, I mean, there was a stint calling plays, but that's a very, very small sample size. And then he immediately went to Kentucky, where, like I said, very promising stuff. I like what he did with NFL caliber players. So I'm very excited to see what he does in the NFL. next year.
Yeah, I am really optimistic from what I've seen when he was calling plays.
Yep.
And shout out to our guy Josh Capo, who
Oh
Pewter
yeah, he's killing it
Report.
right now.
He's already jumped into breaking down Kentucky offense. So we're getting all the early coverage from him. Go check him out. But he's very heavy play action. He likes to move people around, a lot of motion. All the things we've been calling for, and we got more of last year. And looks like Coen's going to take that even a step further. So I'm really optimistic about it. I'm giving the hire right now a B. I feel really comfortable with it. Um, it has potential to move up because I'm really interested in who he's going to bring in terms of the staff around him.
Yeah.
I
Did
know.
lose the wide receiver coach.
Yep, Brad
Did
Isdick went to
lose.
Carolina.
Yep. Harold Goodwin.
Goodwin, Gilbert, the offensive line
Yep.
coach.
Gilbert.
Special teams coordinator, which that's not a role that Coen
Shout
would
out
fill,
Keith Tandy. Hire Keith Tandy.
Bucks legend.
Yeah.
But I think there are some good, candidates for the staff he could build. I know Kentucky's offensive line coach, Zach Yesner. Yesner, I think is something like that. Um, he's someone who's got a really good resume. Working with Kentucky. Before we went to Kentucky, he spent from like 2019 to 22 with the 49ers. And 49ers, great offensive line, great system. They just plug in any random back and he gets 1,000 yards. So
Yep.
That's a guy I really like. The Rams have done a really nice job developing an offensive line. So an assistant line coach is Zach Cromer, I think is his name. Another really good target for them. So I think there's a lot of good names you could associate with Coen and where he's connected to where you could build a really promising staff.
I'm not gonna. This isn't really someone that's linked to Coen, but Mike Munchak is still on the street as an offensive line coach.
One of the best ever, too.
One of the best ever. I'm not holding out hope for Mike Munchak, but he is available.
You know who I'm kind of hoping they bring in?
Yeah.
And again, not connected to Coen, but connected to the Bucks. I would love to see the return of Antoine Randall.
In what role, though? Because I
need a receiver coach.
But Minnesota's just going to block it.
Well, if you give him a raise, say, hey, you can come to us, you can be the receiver coach, and we're going to make you the passing game coordinator. Because the Bucks don't currently have one. They just lost their running game coordinator, so they do kind of do that coordinator of a specific aspect.
If they can get around the blocking of the interview, I'm for it for sure.
Yeah,
because they've interviewed him for OC 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and I think he's a really promising name. He's an up and coming in the coaching world. I really like Antoine Randall.
Yep.
Obviously, great receiver. He played quarterback in college. He learned under Bruce Arians. Huge offensive name. Right now, he's learning under Ben Johnson, who's the hottest OC in all of NFL.
I said Minnesota. I meant Detroit.
I mean, it's the same thing. Cold Midwest,
NFC North teams. Yeah.
But I mean, he's really building a nice resume as a up and coming coach, and I'd love to see him back in Tampa.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so before we transition to Senior Bowl stuff, which I know we both have a lot of opinions on, do you want to take a quick second to touch on something which I think saying it out loud, it feels like a way bigger deal than the impact is actually going to have on the field? Ryan Jensen announcing his retirement today.
Yeah.
And, Big Red is just going to be iconic in Bucks history. His toughness, his chippy in your face attitude, what the caliber of player he was, the flowing red hair. It's just going to be a Bucks legend. And, wishing him nothing but the best, but so devastating that his career was cut short like it was due to the injury.
Yeah, it's tough. You never want to see a player go out like that, especially one of that caliber. I mean, this might be bias. There's not a better center in the NFL when he's on the field. That guy is incredible. If you want to learn more about Ryan Jensen, go just scroll, search Brandon Thorne, Ryan Jensen. He's like an offensive line analyst, evaluator. He's great at it. He loves Ryan Jensen. I'll never forget, I think it was Rick Ross yelling at his TV screen saying to Tom Brady, get that man an Escalade. That was a great clip. Very, very funny. But Ryan Jensen, um, despite the unfortunate outcome to the end of his career, will always be a Super Bowl champion with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, and just such a fluky injury, like day 2 of training camp, non-contact.
Yeah.
It was just gut wrenching then. It's still gut wrenching now. And he hasn't played for the Bucs in 2 years hardly. He played for the playoff game last year in Dallas, but you know,
He's on the sideline. He's in
mhm.
the meetings. He's right there, man. He's if he might have been hurt, but he was still as much involved as he was when he was healthy.
Yeah, and he's such a big presence. He's like the ultimate tone setter,
Yeah.
and you just can't replace that attitude he brings. So
No.
he will be super super missed from
Yeah,
this team.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But we don't want to dwell on the past. We're in the off season. We're looking towards the future, getting back to that next Super
Draft.
Bowl. Yes, we are in draft
NFL
season.
draft.
Coming up here to Detroit
I'm
this year.
home. No, I can't.
Yeah, I know. Who's flying cross country like that? It's tough.
Got work,
But
man.
I know it. If I didn't, I would have been in mobile this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, Senior Bowl practice is just wrapped up. Was it yesterday or today?
Yesterday, I think. I don't think they practiced today.
Tuesday, Thursday. No, I think they had like a light practice today.
Okay.
But yeah, just wrapping up. The game is tomorrow.
Yep.
And the game is what's going to get a lot of the focus and a lot of the highlight. But really, it's the practices where players establish themselves. They get to work with coaches. They get to leave that impression. They get to pick up some NFL stuff that they maybe weren't doing in college. They get to be put in situations that maybe they weren't put in college. So these 3 days of practice, they were huge, huge, huge in terms of evaluation, especially for the Bucs, who they always dip their toe in Senior Bowl guys. I think they had 4 or 5 in last year's draft from the Senior Bowl. So, it's important for every team to get this first-hand, up-and-close look at prospects, but Jason Light loves these kind of guys.
Yeah, he really does. I mean, Ali Marpet, Alex Kappa. Was Payne Durham at the Senior Bowl?
He was.
Payne Durham.
Yaya
Diaby. Yaya Diaby.
Cody Mock.
Cody Mock. Like, they love the Senior Bowl guys.
Especially the ones, Trey Palmer.
Especially the ones that do really well at the Senior Bowl, specifically. So, that narrows it down a little bit. I mean, everyone's going to be looking out for those guys, but it seems like the Bucs make a concerted effort to draft them. So I'm sure we each have some guys that we've noticed had a great week of practice that we're kind of like, yeah, you look like a Buck.
Yeah, so let's start with some of your guys. I know you weren't here last week for the preview show. I went over the list you left, some of your favorite guys. I know we shared a lot of those names, who we were really interested in, and some of them really showed out this week.
Yeah.
So why don't you kick us off? Who are some of the guys that stood out to you? You do one, I'll do one. We'll kind of alternate.
Sure. I'm going to start out with the big one, Jackson Powers Johnson. I mean, I don't think there was a better player at the Senior Bowl from the looks and sounds of things. I mean, the guy was dominant. Dominant. I don't think I saw him lose a rep. There was one he almost lost, and then he just like whipped the dude around and planted him in the ground. I was like, yeah, okay, this guy is legit. I wrote him on my Senior Bowl preview list as the first name that I was like, yeah, this is one I'm highlighting, thinking, yeah, you could probably draft this guy at 26 and it might be a little bit high because, center positional value is not crazy high right now, yada, yada, yada. Now it's kind of looking like, man, the Bucs are going to be lucky if he's there at 26 with the way he's played. It was dominant. I mean, if he's there at 26, you submit the pick in 2 seconds.
Yeah, and not just, he was really good against a group of defensive linemen who, I didn't love, but he dominated them. And it's not just the play on the field, it's the physical tools he brings. 6'3", 335 pounds, and he can move, and he can get into space, and he finds work in space. Like, he's 300 pounds. Like,
yeah.
He
And
is an
he's
incredible athlete.
nasty, man. He buries you. I mean, he will put you in the dirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was, I did a preview article for Bucks Report, previewing offensive guys, and I gave some comps. And my comp for him coming into it was Eric McCoy, who I was really high on coming out his year.
Yeah, I love
Really
Eric
solid
McCoy.
center. And now I feel like I sold him short. And
Yeah.
I really like Eric McCoy.
I mean, I'm with you.
Like, I think we need to start talking of him in like Frank Ragnow territory, who I think went 2021, early 20s when he came out a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And now he's the best center in the league.
Yep.
So, yeah, definitely share that. I think he's the biggest winner of the Senior Bowl. I think he's someone who should absolutely be on the Bucks radar and will be on the Bucks radar if he's available at 26.
Yeah, it's a big if from the sounds of it. And, I mean, we say that. This is a really stacked offensive class. Like, the receivers are crazy, a lot of quarterbacks, the tackles are looking pretty good. Center might fall.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. Positional value wise, interior line is not highly valued.
Yep.
And this is a deep class of high priority positions. There's a lot of quarterbacks to look at. There's a lot of offensive tackles. There's a lot of corners to look at. People really like corners. There's a really good receiving class.
Yep.
There's a couple of high-end edge guys who we were talking about earlier. So it's possible. It wouldn't shock me, but if you're talking, the talent level matching where you get him, it would be surprising, because he's probably going to, when I finish my draft board, he's probably going to be a top 10, 12 player on my board.
His tape is great too. Like, it's not just a Senior Bowl thing. His tape is outstanding.
It is. I had a hard time finding a flaw with it.
Yeah, it was really good.
My biggest flaw was I thought, okay, maybe not a perfect fit for the Bucks because he's a bigger center, probably not as mobile as a guy like Zach Frazier, who I really like out of West Virginia.
Yeah.
But he came in bigger and more athletic than I expected him to.
I like his tape, like his movement. I mean, at times I was like, okay, his anchor might lack late, but I mean, you watch those Senior Bowl reps and he would get pushed back a little bit and his hips just sink and he holds the guy there. You're like, all right, yeah, can't really complain.
The real tragedy of the week is not getting to see him in the game tomorrow go against Tavondre Sweat.
You're not wrong.
370 pounds of nose tackle.
Wrong. Hey,
God, I would pay for that.
If the Bucks have worries about his anchor and take him, you got a perfect guy to test it out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and 335 pounds, you're probably not going to find a better mold for someone you can have a big, strong guy in the middle.
Yep, you're not wrong.
Yeah, so definitely shared feelings there on JPJ.
Yep. Who's your guy, number one?
So I'm going to stick in the same position group. He's not my highest ranked guy, my biggest takeaway guy, but he's a guy who I really wanted to see something from this week because he was on the radar.
Yep.
And I thought he had a really, really good week. Smaller school guy out of UConn, guard Christian Hayes.
Yeah.
Haynes.
Had a good week.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Did you see the clip that I think Damian Pierce posted?
Was it the one where he got his helmet ripped off?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
So I liked what I saw from Haynes in that post, though.
Oh yeah, I mean that was, the defensive lineman was doing way too much, and it honestly to me I was like, yeah, he's upset he got beat because Haynes just kind of sat there and didn't move.
So for anyone who hasn't seen the post, he's going one-on-one with this defensive tackle, and the defensive tackle's doing everything he can to get through him, and Haynes just locks him down. He absolutely stonewalls him.
Here, let me see if I can find it. I can.
Share it with the people.
Here, you keep going though.
But he gets a little chippy with him. Tackle has a few words. Haynes doesn't let go of him right away. So the defensive tackle gets in his face and rips his helmet off and swings it at him. And Haynes just stands there. And, Damon posted this, he was there, to hear it. Haynes just calls out to him, hey, if you're scared, go to church. Just absolutely no fear in his game.
Right,
just an absolute dog rep.
Here, how do I do this again? Oh gosh, present.
Add it to the stream, and I'll add it to the.
Wait. Okay. Here, it's gonna be us. Here, is it here?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, that's not the clip. This is just like a compilation of Christian Haynes. Can you see it?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, here's the one. This isn't the angle you're talking about, but it shows you what you need.
Yeah, absolutely stonewalls him. Tackle rips
And
his
then,
helmet off and swings
yeah,
at him.
and then I'm just gonna let this play. You can see why we're talking about Chris. That's Braden Fisk. That was maybe the best defensive lineman this week at the Senior Bowl. I mean, yeah, that guy next to him, someone I might mention too. That tackle.
But I mean, Haynes is a smaller school guy, but he's got great length for the position, long arms. He's super athletic, he's super mobile. And my big question coming into this was, is he powerful enough? He's got the frame, but is he powerful enough to
Yep.
anchor and go toe to toe with those big strong defensive tackles at a higher level? And he did really well.
And you can see there are some reps where he's still, the anchor concerns are there,
Mm-hmm.
right? But again, like that one, like you said, he's never like tossed aside. He always stays engaged. He, like that, he doesn't let you cross his face, and he's always gonna give you everything, right? Shout out James Foster for those clips, very nice. Angles of those and the practice film there at the Senior Bowl. But yeah, he was killing it this week.
Yeah, and he'd be more of a value guy, probably a guy you can get in the third round. I think he fits this system really well. He's a guy who can get out in space. If you're talking someone who can play in a wide zone, I think he'd do really well in that system. And if you can get JPJ in the first round and Christian Hayes in the second round, and you really lock up your interior line, you surround a guy like Haynes with Tristan Wirfs on one side and JPJ on the other, and I don't care if he's a little smaller. You got plenty of beef on either side.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and it's going to come down to what they think of Malk. If they want to draft another mid-round interior offensive lineman, but we'll see. I mean, if they do, Haynes is the one probably.
Yeah, I think he's a great fit. I was really impressed with him overall.
Yeah. So how many do you want to do total, like each?
Let's do like 3 or 4 total.
I was gonna okay, 3 each. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
My second guy, I'm gonna address the other top position of need that I think they need to address early, and that is the edge position. Hit on Yaya Diaby, looks great. Shaq Barrett's kind of been useless for the last 2 years, if I'm being honest. Darius Robinson from Missouri. Let me get his measurements up just so the people understand. 6'5", 286 pounds, 34 and 6/8 inch arms, almost 35-inch arms, and his wingspan is 84 inches, 84 and a half inches. That is some long person, man. Like, that is crazy. And he was voted.
Logan Hall was supposed to be.
Yeah, but like an edge rusher, not like an interior.
Is he more of an
hybrid.
edge than an interior guy? I haven't actually watched him yet.
He was edge at Missouri. Yeah.
Okay, that's
for
interesting.
sure.
I got to check him out still.
I mean, he played the edge at the Senior Bowl too. Like, bull rush, unbelievable bull rush, power. He was voted, I think, the player of the week in practice by NFL scouts and executives. So the Senior Bowl, they do these awards that it's like, who do the players think was the best, and then who do the scouts think was the best? And the scouts thought Darius Robinson was the best. So if that tells you anything, it means that he impressed the decision makers. But huge frame, violent bull rush, power, and he has some nice counters to go with it. I was scrolling earlier Twitter, and I don't think I saw him lose a practice rep. And obviously that could be people are like, oh, this guy is kind of crazy, let me only post his good stuff, which is a possibility. But just a really powerful, that's the word I'd always go back to, powerful rusher. I haven't really watched his Missouri tape in depth yet, other than knowing they use him at edge. But from a Senior Bowl perspective, he's going to be one I watch this weekend.
Well, and when a random team like Missouri rises up and has a great year, I think they finished top 10 in the country.
Yes.
There's always a reason why. There's a driving force on that team.
Yep.
I can't even think of my big comp is I always go back to college basketball, when Davidson went on their big run for a couple of years, that Steph Curry guy turned out to be pretty good.
He was all right. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was all right.
So, I'm really interested. I know they have a defensive back I'm interested in watching, and this guy's going to be high on the list of priorities after the Senior Bowl that I go check out.
Which defensive back?
Oh, I can't remember his name.
Is
Let
it
me pull it
Chris
up.
Abrams Drain?
I
Or
do
is
think it was
it,
a hyphenated name.
was
Let
it that? I
me.
think they got two. That's the only
Oh,
reason I ask.
let me pull it up. I'll know it when I see it.
Okay.
Um. Oh, I thought I would. It might be Rickishaw or Rickstraw.
Yeah, Ennis Rakestraw. Yeah, they have
Yeah,
two corners. Or one's a nickel, so corner safety, but
but those
yeah,
two, I'm really interested in checking them out following the Senior Bowl.
yes, 100%.
All right, so I'll move to my second guy, a guy who I thought was really going to kill it this week going into it, and he absolutely did. And we were talking earlier about a different mold of wide receiver, and I think, this is that mold that fits this Ram style offense, this McVay offense, and that's Georgia wide receiver Lad McConkey.
Okay. I was worried. I was like, please don't say Brendan Rice. Not a fan, but that's a big fan of Lad McConkey here. He's great.
Yeah. Oh, he's so different than Rice too, which I won't even get into it. But
Yeah, no, it's all right.
McConkey is awesome. And,
No, he's great.
it's so rare that you go to a school like Georgia and you lose one game in 3 years and you win 2 national championships, and you still find a way to fly under the radar.
Yep.
But I feel like McConkey is really under the radar. I think he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver for me when this is all done. He's just an incredible separator. He has elite quickness in terms of start-stop ability. He accelerates really well, and he can stop on a dime and accelerate again. You talk about route running. He is going to carve teams up in the NFL, and he has legitimate long speed. He's going to be running in that 4.4 range, maybe if like a 4.4 kind of Chris Godwin kind of speed, which is plenty fast enough to take the top off of defense when you ask him to.
Yep. I'm with you.
Yeah. And I've seen it. I'm sure you have too. The Wes Welker comps, the Julian Edelman comps.
Yeah.
This is a totally different kind of player. I think Lad McConkey is closer to CeeDee Lamb than he is, Julian Edelman.
I don't know if I'll go that far because CeeDee's insane, but he's Lad McConkey. Big fan of Lad McConkey. I think, like you said, the routes are polished. The hands great. He's not like a sneaky athlete guy. He's an athlete.
But that's what I'm talking about because CeeDee, he's that same mold, route runner. He can do it all.
Yeah. But CeeDee
he's
did
not that quicker than fast, sneaky athlete kind of.
Right.
Wes
CeeDee
Welker
did run a 4.5 though.
He did, and I think McConkey will run faster than that.
Okay. All right.
But the guy I compare him to more than anyone is Deontay Johnson with a good pair of hands.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm also going to name a wide receiver, but you won't catch me, a University of Florida alumni, dead, not mentioning Ricky Pearsall. Had himself a week. If you want to talk about suddenness and fluidity running routes, he's up there. I think he's probably a little bit more athletic, a little bit more fast than Lad McConkey. Great hands. I mean, if you want to see a crazy catch, just search Ricky Pearsall catch. It was in the season, crazy stuff. I think Ricky left early, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was one of those group of people like with Malik Mustafa and Jackson Powers Johnson who departed a bit early just because I think people were like, all right, you've done enough. But he was cooking DBs all week. I mean, cooking them. Sudden off the line of scrimmage. You want to throw him in the slot. I think giving him some free releases is just going to let him be used to the best of his ability. He's fast, sudden, smooth, great hands. Like I said, going to jump really well too. Shout out Ricky Pearsall, go Gators.
Yeah, he's another one who I haven't watched yet, but watching the Senior Bowl practices, he was carving people up. I'd say he was one of the best 3 receivers I watched this week.
Yep.
It was him, McConkey, and Roman Wilson from Michigan.
Yeah,
I
I'm
thought
with you.
those three consistently were carving people up.
Yeah, I was thinking about Roman Wilson, but then you brought up a Georgia Bulldog, so I kind of had to, get my Florida guy in there.
Yeah, there's some kind of rivalry between Florida and Georgia, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. It's not gone our way recently, but I don't really care.
I'm told there's also a band involving the two, something about a line. That's all the country music I can reference.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash, and that's basically it.
What a joke.
Hey, I got dad jokes for days. You don't even know. All right, so this is my third.
This is your third.
Okay, you've done two. This is my third.
I've done three.
Jackson Powers Johnson.
Darius Robinson.
Darius Robinson. Okay, so this is my last one. And this is, I think, with this new offensive coordinator hire, I think this what makes it even more prevalent because the Bucs were not good in the red zone last year. They need to find a way to punch the ball in the end zone.
Yeah.
And, the best way to do that is improve the offensive line. They also need more of a hammer-style running back to get those tough, gritty yards. You don't want to be running Rachaad White into a brick wall. And one guy who I thought really showed well this week was Kentucky running back Ray Davis.
Oh, I'm familiar with Ray Davis. He ran for 300 yards against the Florida Gators.
Oh, no.
This last year. Yeah, they couldn't stop a run. Liam Coen cooked us. So, I'm very familiar with Ray Davis.
Yeah, and he is just a freaking load. Like, you look at him, he's built like a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
And let me get his measurements real quick.
Sure.
He's listed at 5'10", 216 by ESPN. So, he is a between the tackles, one cut kind of runner. He's got surprising speed for his thick build. Honestly, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Leonard Fournette in his style of play because he can catch the ball a little bit too. Nothing fancy, but he can make those basic catches, that Leonard Fournette could make.
He had a crazy one-handed catch this week.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. He had a really good one. It was like off balance. It was pretty crazy.
And he had a great year under Coen this year. Not just running it, but catching it too. He had, let's see if I can find it. I think he had like 6 or 7 receiving touchdowns. 7. He had 7 receiving touchdowns.
Yeah.
He had more touchdowns in his 1 year with Coen at Kentucky than he did in his previous 4 seasons combined, which was 4 years of playing at 2 different schools.
Yep.
So I think you pair him with Coen in the NFL. You've got him as a complimentary back to Rachaad White. He's got his niche. You can get him on day 3 because he's going to be like a 25-year-old rookie. I'm in on Ray Davis in day 3.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of a 1-2 punch running back, it couldn't be better. I mean, you got Rachaad White, who's like that a little bit more make you miss, elusive, like screen running back, and then you got Ray Davis, who's the angle route, middle of the field, between the tackles, hard nose, going to get you yards runner, right? And that's also not to say that he can't break off a run, because I saw it plenty of times. He can break off some runs. He's got solid speed. Yeah, he's got solid speed. He's not going to be a slug in the open field, and he's going to be able to get you those tough, gritty yards and then break off some big ones for you.
Yeah, I mean, I came into this whole Senior Bowl prospects, with this niche in mind on, trying to find a guy who can fill that void. And all I wanted was a guy who can be our own version of the Gus Bus. Obviously, Gus Edwards, way bigger, 6'1", 330 or 235 at the combine.
Yeah, he's big. Yeah.
But being a little bit shorter, he's a little bit more stout. You're not going to be as big, but your weight carries more weight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to run, I hope Coen doesn't want to run the ball on first down a bunch. But if you want to run the ball on early downs and get those tough yards that for some reason certain coaches desire, like those 3-4, he'll get it for you. But at the same time, if you want to run him on an angle route, maybe get 6-7 on first down, Ray Davis can also be that guy. So
I think he'll be a really nice value pick for someone, hopefully the Bucs on day 3.
I wouldn't shock me. I mean, Cohen's going to come in and be like, hey, I love Rachaad White. I need this guy too.
Yeah, different
You
skill
know?
set.
Yeah, it really is.
And I mean, Rashad, he showed he could get those, 3 or 4 tough yards, because he was running into a wall a lot of times.
But that's not his best.
Yeah, you don't want to run him into the ground like that. I mean,
No.
utilize him at what he does best and preserve him.
I mean, it's two different players. You see Rachaad White between the tackles, and then you see Rachaad White on pitches and on screens and on wide zone runs, and you're like, oh, this is a brand new player. One is vastly better, and it's not the one between the tackles.
And I still don't even understand how he does it. Well, watching him, it looks like such a simple cut that
Yeah.
anyone could make, but 2 guys go flying past him. It's like, awesome.
It's crazy. Yeah, he's very talented.
Yeah, he makes it look super easy. So
Yeah.
get that hammer, that between the tackles guy to be that 1-2 punch.
I think we're pretty lockstep on the needs here, right?
Definitely.
Edge, center,
interior
wide
offensive
receiver,
line. Yeah, wide receivers high for me.
and then secondary
Nickel.
running back. Nickel.
And secondary running back. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. One of the guys who I was most excited to see in this event dropped out before the thing even started was Mikey Samerstill from Michigan.
Yeah.
Great nickel, great coverage guy. You can bump a guy like Chris Izzy into strong safety and upgrade your coverage there.
It's like a third round pick.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great third round pick. He's a playmaker on the ball, forces fumbles. I've read good things about Georgia's safety.
Tyke Smith?
No, the other one.
Javon Bullard.
Bullard, yeah. Safety / nickel more than anything.
Yeah, he was voted by the players, one of the best safeties at the Senior Bowl.
I saw that. I think I saw Ian Cummins posted that the other.
Yep.
So he's one I still need to go check out, but I'm really interested in him after the Senior Bowl week. But those are the needs, and it's way higher for edge and interior offensive line.
Clear number 1 and 2. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, like I said, Shaq has not been great. The weak point of the offensive line was Hainsey by a wide margin this year. You got to upgrade those two.
Ugh.
It's a shame.
You know what drives me nuts about the Hainsey thing?
What?
I was listening to, I think it was like the PFF podcast, and they had Jim Nagy on leading up to the Senior Bowl like a week ago. And he was telling a story about Robert Hainsey, about how they didn't initially invite him to the Senior Bowl because they had like a 6th or 7th round grade evaluation on him.
Right.
And Notre Dame's coach, I think it was maybe his offensive line coach or their head coach, they called Nagy and like begged them to take Robert Hainsey. And, that's the only reason he got his foot in the door. And obviously he impressed Jason Lay, but, to hear, this guy was viewed as a 6th or 7th round pick and we got him in the 3rd round did not make me very happy.
I mean, I think that was the consensus when he got drafted then. I think people are like, I like him as a player, but like not this early. I think he's a backup. That was the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hadn't even scouted him. That's how far down he was on my radar.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone said, he's got the right mindset. You get him in that locker room, he's going to increase your toughness and your grit and all that kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm open-minded to it. But,
if that's the best part about you, you're not a good football player.
No, he just didn't have it then, and he doesn't have it now. And it's
semi-joking there, but
but it's the end of the truth.
Yeah.
All right. Any last names you want to sneak in real quick before we wrap up our Senior Bowl recap here?
I'm just gonna mention like 1 or 2. Not really gonna go into depth, but I don't think we're gonna draft a tackle. Tyler Guyton freaking killed it this week.
Dude's a freak.
Out of Oklahoma, guy's a freak. You're right. Hold on, I had one more. Let me find it. Malik Mustafa, a guy that was on my list last week, left early. Talk about a nickel. Talk about if you want to move around your secondary, he's the one you pick, right? He can play free, play strong. He played nickel, stud, played everywhere. He play in the box, like wherever you want to use him, you can use him there. Big fan.
Yeah, I need to watch him still. I'm doing defensive backs right now. I just got I'm working on Nate Wiggins. I did the other Alabama cornerback earlier today. Yeah, Terrion Arnold. He's really good. I like him a lot.
Wiggins and Arnold are very good, both of them.
Yeah, I'm still kind of developing my opinion on Wiggins. I haven't seen enough from him to feel one way or another, but from what I've read, those are the consensus top 2.
They're probably my top 2. I'm trying to remember who else is there.
Oh, one of the other big Senior Bowl guys that we haven't mentioned, Quinion Mitchell from Toledo. He had a great week.
Oh, he's not my top 2, but I'm a big fan of him. People have press concerns, and those are valid because he didn't play it a ton. But he's a freak athlete. Like, the guy is just glue in coverage. If you're like, maybe, but like Seattle, I would assume is going to love Quinion Mitchell.
I think a lot of teams are, and he is just great at breaking on the ball and making plays.
Yeah.
I don't remember. It might have been Rice he was covering in practice, and it looked like he was jogging the entire route, and he just stayed in Rice's hip pocket, and he intercepted the ball, and he's like, "Oh, that was easy."
Yeah, I believe it. Jogging sounds correct against Brendan Rice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a Brendan Rice fan. The genes are there, but he is not the one.
I was really underwhelmed by all the big body wide receivers this week. Rice, Xavier Leggett, Michael
Leggett, I like because he's after the catch is really good. And I think he offers a bit more at the catch point than Brendan Rice, to be fair.
Oh yeah, better than Rice, but I thought for the hype he had coming in, he kind of underwhelmed.
That's fine. Yeah.
And then Malachi Corley, I wasn't super impressed with from what I saw either. Kind of a thicker build wide receiver.
Yeah, I like those two more than Rice. I think I didn't see a rep from Rice that I was like, yeah, that translates.
Yeah, I haven't watched him yet, but what I saw from the Senior Bowl, nothing really stood out to me about him, which is weird because a lot of guys were hyping him up, maybe because he's Jerry Rice's kid, but I'm just like,
he's Jerry Rice's
this is super average.
Yep.
So not someone I've watched yet, but from my initial viewing at the Senior Bowl, it's very meh.
I'm with you.
Okay, so one more I wanted to slip in real quick.
Yeah.
Who surprised me? He was on my radar a while back, but he had a really huge fall from grace, and that was Spencer Rattler.
Oh, he had a good week.
Yeah, he did. He had a nice week. I felt like every time, I looked up, I thought, oh, hey, that's a nice throw. It was always Spencer Rattler throwing the ball.
I mean, it definitely won Bo Nix.
Well, he had one nice throw. He threaded it in the second level over a linebacker between. Yeah, I know, one nice throw. But
I'm kidding, but yeah, I think he was probably one of the better quarterbacks there, to be honest.
Rattler, yeah, I walked away impressed.
Yeah.
If the Bucs can grab him in the 4th round, I feel much better about Rattler's future than I do Kyle Trask's. And I would with his physical tools and ability, his natural talent, I think he could really thrive in this offense. As if Baker goes down for an extended period of time, or you can't, get a long-term deal worked out, in maybe 2 years from now, Rattler could step in and kind of have a Jordan Love kind of emergence.
I don't know, because I just think he's a backup, but
but he's got the tools and the talent, much like Love did.
The tools are there, yeah. The tools are for sure there. I'm just kind of concerned, he is what he is. He's been in college forever.
He has.
So
But Love was a little bit the same way. He threw 23 interceptions this last year.
I can see the path. I just the likelihood is against him.
Well, sure. I mean, you draft a quarterback outside around run, it's always an uphill battle.
Yeah, that's kind of my philosophy is if you're drafting a QB outside of round 1, you're probably not going to get much out of him. Obviously, they're the exception. Shut up, San Francisco fans.
I didn't even think of Brock Purdy. I was thinking Dak or Kirk Cousins, good quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, but those are good quarterbacks. That's why I said San Francisco.
Yeah, they're all talk now, but when they have to pay him $50 million next year, it's going to be well, I mean, Brock Purdy's pretty mid. Anyone could run this offense.
It's because they could. They can. They can. With the exception of Trey Lance, apparently.
Oh, man, R.I.P. Trey Lance.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but yeah, man, C.J. Beathard could run it. How can you not? You must suck.
It's got to be a mental thing because the physical talent is off the charts for him.
Yeah, but I mean, he did start 1 year at North Dakota State and then went to the NFL. That's pretty nuts.
And I thought he was a little bit raw coming out, so
for sure.
It's just one of the things,
Hey.
Different circumstance, it might have gone differently. COVID messed some of that up.
It's not an exact science drafting.
It is not, but we'd like to think it is because we have strong opinions on it.
Yep, that's right.
All right. Anything else before we wrap this episode up here?
Nothing from me, other than happy to be back. Of course.
Yeah, happy to have you back. I'm sure people are
Yeah.
tired of hearing me drone on for 45 minutes.
Hey, hopefully, I think a lot of the times we're pretty consensus on how we view things, but I think having another person to bounce ideas off of and just bounce thoughts off of is always good, conducive for a well set up podcast or video, something like this. So, it's always happy to talk Bucks football with people who know what they're talking about and have strong opinions that they feel are right. Always makes for good conversation.
For sure, man. Speaking of people who know what they're talking about, tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find your work, where you
Sure.
at.
Yeah, I'll do this just now because I'm, expecting to be regular. You can find me on Twitter at NFL Ballard. Um, I don't tweet a ton, but like if a player really catches my eye, I'll send something out. I'll retweet all the Creamsicle Chronicles stuff, JT stuff. I'm hoping if time permits, I need to call Keith actually. And time permits, I'm going to start writing for Bucks Report in this off season. And during the season, you can find my stuff on Sports Talk Florida. I cover the Bucks. So
Right on. Then, similar, you can find me on Twitter at IcewaterOlson. Find all my written work at bucksreport.com. You can find this podcast if you're viewing it on Sports Talk Florida or on YouTube. We are the Creamsicle Chronicle podcast. You can find us on Twitter at the Creamsicle Crew. And I think that's everything we have to plug before we wrap it up.
I think so. Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.